All right, video number 2. Hopefully this one's more exciting. I'm going to give you guys a graph template, and it's something I don't very often do because I actually would prefer you guys to do everything from scratch, but I'm going to make the first one easy because these numbers are a little crazy. All right, so the very first thing that we're going to look at is these lines. These lines represent titles. So every axis, remember we have 2 axes. We have an X and a Y axis. These are y-axes. X is the one that's on the bottom. It has 2 legs. We'll get into that when we do our full graphing unit. These are called scales. The scales, you have to know what they're being measured in. You can't just have random numbers. And a scale also must always start with 0. You can't start a scale at 100 or 200 because then it's not valid. The bottom is actually generally what we call our, it is our independent variable. Okay, so this one is the one that we choose. So in this one, it's going to be countries. So remember, my first country was Canada. Then I had the USA. Then I had India, etc., etc., etc. You're going to have 10 countries all the way across. Okay, this whole chart should be filled. Now, the title is going to be population and population density by country. Just fits. Why am I not clear again? There we go. By country. On the left-hand side, you'll see that this goes up by hundreds of millions. 100 million, 200 million, 300 million. Remember, we get to 1 billion. That's 1B. Then I have 1.1B. That should be 1.2B. There's a mistake on my graph. You guys are going to have to fix that. 1.4B. So that's wrong on every one of the photocopies, just so you know. So this over here is just population. And it's in number of people. This side over here, it goes up 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700. Okay, this scale goes up to 1,500. Okay, this is actually your population density scale. Wow, there we go. Population density. And it's actually measured in people per kilometers squared. You must have that. In high school, you don't put that, you just lost a mark. Now, the bottom one seems fairly self-explanatory, but we also need to put country. There is no measure for country, so we just leave it like that. All right? So that's what your graph looks like. I've already set the scales. We'll talk about that, as I said, another time. So now let's take a look at our data. You guys are ready to start doing some graphing. My first set of data, I am looking at population and population density. Okay? Now, you'll notice that each one of these countries has 2 dots worth of space. That's for a very specific reason. So let's go to Canada. Canada has 37 million people. You guys are going to do this with a pencil to start, please. Don't go right to Sharpie. So if we look here, this first dot is 100 million. Do we have 100 million? No. Do we have 50 million? No, that little tick would be 50 million. So our line is going to be less than 50 million. And for this one, we can eyeball it. Now, you can do this at the same time or after. You'll notice that when I asked you to color code your countries, this is why. I've already colored it. It's already done. That one's done. Now let's take a look at the population density. My population density is 4. So now we have to use the scale on the right-hand side. Well, this would be 50. 4 is pretty much right on the line. So in the dot in between, so right there, there's a line of dots. I'm going to put a big dot right at the bottom. Okay, the population density is pretty small. There we go. Okay, now let's do the US. The US has got a little bit more going on for itself in terms of population. Yeah. So what do we have for population? We have 326 million. Well, that sounds like a little more fun. Remember, you do this in pencil. We go up to 300. There's about 3 1/4. I'll mark it across. So I take my pencil and I draw my bars. Using a bar graph to show population, because it's a direct comparison. There we go. Pencil crayon. I'm a big believer in things that give you nice solid color. I don't expect you to use felts. Guys, just remember, if you're ever using Sharpies and stuff in the classroom, please put something underneath of it. Otherwise, you're going to mess up our tables, and it's not cool. All right, there we go. There's my bar for the US. Now, the other thing you can do here, you don't have to, but we could put 37 million. This would be 326 million, just so it's really easy to see how much it is. USA, population density, 36, all right. Right-hand scale. We go from 0 to 100. Well, we're still not at 50, but we're at least right about there. There's my population density. I'm going to do one more. Okay, hopefully you get the idea. Let's go down to India. India, 1.3 billion people. Now we get to go all the way up the scale. I don't know why that's not focusing very clearly today. So I go starting out, there's 1 billion, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 billion. Did I say 1.3? Yeah, 1.3 billion. So you do this with a pencil, all the way down. All the way down. Notice how I use my straight edge for every single thing I'm doing. Okay, please don't get sloppy and just start scribbling. India, on my color table, is actually a purple. They're a very colorful place. And we color in. You get the idea. Like so. Color the whole thing in. This is the fun part. Now you see my awesome coloring skills. Ta-da! I know you're applauding me. All right, 1.3 billion, 1.3 B for billion. Okay, stuff isn't rocket science. We'll get to that stuff another day. Okay, now, what is my population density? It's 455 for India. So now I'm going to go up to 400 and about a half. Right there. There is my population density of India. Okay? So you're going to do that for all 10. That's really where kind of I expect you to get after this day. We are going to come back to this data after. Now the last thing you're going to end up doing once you have this whole thing done is you're going to use a different colored felt, Sharpie, something like that. And starting at the start, you're actually going to connect these. And statistically, this doesn't actually mean anything. But what it does is it gives us a different visual. Remember, the whole point of this unit is to have a visual. So you're going to have this other line that crisscrosses through all of your bars. That's why it's called a split graph. It shows us two pieces of information together. This is your first foray into what we're actually heading into. All right, guys, so 10 things down, 10 bits of data. Remember, try and find high population densities and try and find populations that have at least 1 million. If you don't want to do that, you can get stuff that's in the thousands. There's a few countries that have population densities in the like 1200s. Bangladesh is a good one, 1200 is their population density. So Bangladesh, put that one on too. I'd really encourage you to put Bangladesh on. All right, I look forward to seeing your graphs, and yeah, color them nice, make them look sharp, okay? This is all about your attention to detail. Thanks so much. We'll see you when I see you.